Robert, are you Robert or Bob?
So I usually go by Bob.
Okay.
Hi,
Good to know.
Bob.
Robert for formal settings.
You're good to go.
Okay, good. Good to know.
Okay, morning. I'm going to call this Trees and Green Infrastructure Committee meeting to order at exactly 10 a.m. on Friday, April 16th. First thing we'll do is the roll call, and I think we're all here today. So Commissioner Dick Byrne, Andrea Hoffman,
Here.
Joan Flaherty,
Here.
Elise Burns,
Here.
Liza Trey,
Here.
Katie Downs,
Here.
and Bob Van Horn.
Here.
So I think we are all here. Yeah, 8. Great. Okay, well, I had sent out 3 sets of minutes, still working on those. And of course, the really good detailed ones for March 12th are all are from Joan. So Joan has been doing our minutes for the last, ever since we started reconvening. So that's why those look so much better than the ones I do. But let's see. So I guess we were, this group was configured on for the last meeting, so we can all vote on that. And then just the people that were on the committee in 19 would vote on the other 2. So so let's take them in that order. Are there any comments or changes for the one on the 12th? I did get the typo on the name.
Okay.
Yeah, I did get
Okay. Yeah. Figured you saw that. Okay.
that. But are there any other
No,
comments?
they look great.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the March 12th minutes.
And second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Bye.
Okay. Now for the 2 on, and actually it's interesting that both of the timeliness of these old ones is really interesting, because it was the special meeting with Doug Talamay, which is all coming back again as he gets more and more publicity, and his oaks get more and more articles written about. And then the special meeting, the regular monthly meeting we had earlier that same month. So I guess that would be, let's see, Joan, were you there then?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
I didn't attend the meeting, no.
Okay, all right. So it would just be everybody except Bob, Joan, and Liza would vote on this one. So do we have a motion for these 2?
Motion to approve the business meeting minutes. Or do you
Well,
want to do them together?
Yeah, I'll do them together.
Okay, motion to approve the 2 minutes from October 19.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Oh, aye.
Aye, okay.
I-
All right.
Aye.
Okay. And we don't have any correspondence today, and Ann has told me that no one is signed up to speak. So, and I'm not going to spend much time on an update, partly because I don't really have one, and secondly, we've got some other big topics to talk about in our hour, so I want to maximize the time for that. But so I think we have time for these 3 topics. So rather than moving things around, I will go ahead and start with Arbor Day. And before, Andrea's going to just give us a quick update. It's 2 weeks from today. So this is our last meeting before that event. And I'll turn it over to you, Andrea.
Okey doke. I think we are on our way. We're very ready, I think. It would be wonderful if you have time on Friday, April 30th to join us at 10:30 on the grounds of Rehoboth Elementary School. There will be tents, and you'll see activities. So exactly where we are, you'll be able to find us pretty easily. The big news is we are planting oaks. We've gone from willow oaks to real, honest to goodness oaks. And I actually have to ask Liz, because I haven't spoken to her in the last week, where we stand on the oaks. Are they purchased, Liz? Oak or oaks?
No, I haven't blocked them yet.
Okay, well, we'll have 1 or 2 oaks for the school for our program. 10:30, the way the program runs, there's a 10:30 program and an 11 o'clock program. We will be reading the proclamation, making us a tree city. We have a wonderful ranger who is coming to work with the 4th grade at 10:30, and the second program, which is exactly a redo, will be done at 11 with the 5th graders. We'll do a ranger interactive program. And we will then have the winners of the Rehoboth poster contest, tree poster contest for the 4th grade and the 5th grade announced. And we will end with a song. So if you can join us, that would be wonderful. We'd love it. Any questions?
A couple. First, is Bunky going to be there with his guitar?
Bunky will be there with his
Okay.
guitar, and he is bringing a friend this year. I haven't spoken to him in about a week, but he was practicing with a friend.
Okay.
So yes, there will be music, live music, the boy band.
Wonderful. Okay. And then remind me on the timing of the art. It is going to be hung in City Hall.
Yes,
what-
I failed to mention that. I will be hanging the art. We will not have an art opening at City Hall, a live art opening for the kids, but instead, the day before, on the 29th, the Rehoboth Art League, Nick Sarantora and myself will be hanging all of the art. We're going to squeeze it all into the windows. So the kids will be invited. We'll announce the winners. There are going to be 6 winners from Rehoboth, 3 from each grade, but we will announce the winners. I will have those framed and on display in the window along with everybody's.
Okay.
So, and the kids will be invited to bring their parents and walk by City Hall to see their art hang. So
And
yes,
how long will it be displayed?
Nick tells me about 2 weeks.
Oh, really? That long?
Yes.
Okay, great, great.
Yes,
That's wonderful. I know the kids always really like
yes,
that.
they love it.
And then I guess lastly, is the tree going to be in the ground by the time we have the ceremony, or will it just be there? And
It will be in the ground, yes. What we will be doing in the second, the 11 o'clock program is, I believe, and Liz and I have talked a little bit about this, we're going to have a ceremonial watering. So the honor of the 3 winners of the 5th grade poster contest will have the honor of walking over and being the first ceremonial watering.
Okay.
So we need, Liz, we need 3 watering cans.
So you need some watering cans.
So,
Wait, what are the you're gonna have 3 kids water 2 trees?
yes,
Like at the same time? Okay.
yes. Yes, photo op, Liz.
And then
So,
who's
yes.
maintaining them otherwise? Is the school district going to be watering them every day?
Well, this is an issue, and I think Liz is going to work out some bags that we will have, and then we have a promise from some neighbors right on Scarborough Extended that they promised, and of course we'll probably I'm going to get Tom and Sturgis to walk over there. So,
Right, okay.
so I think we're taking care of it. I hope.
And Andrea, I go by that at least once a day on a walk.
Okay.
So I'll keep my eye on it, definitely.
I also am going to talk to Cindy. What's Cindy's last name? Cindy.
Love it.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to talk to Cindy Lovett and Elise, see
Yeah.
if I can put those trees on your,
Well, I was wondering about that, if we could put it on the tree.
Yeah,
list. Mhm.
yes, I
Yeah,
specifically
I think
sent
we
an
had talked
invitation.
about that. Mhm.
I specifically sent an invitation to her to
Great.
come by
Okay,
for the program.
good.
So,
I made a note.
okay, great.
Well, thank you, Andrea, as always, for
Pleasure.
planning this annual event and doing it so well. So we look forward to it.
Thanks.
And we'll get some good publicity afterwards, I hope. for
Yes,
the commemorative
yes.
Program and all too. Okay, so on to new business. We had talked before at the last meeting about priority plannings for this year. And what I recall from that was that, one of the biggest things was going to be the Lake Avenue streetscape, because that's going to have about 12 to 15, something like that, trees, right?
I can't remember right offhand, but let's see, 5 oaks, 1 or 2 Nissus sylvaticas, I think 5 Magnolia virginianas,
Mhm.
something like that. I'm not around that number. I can't remember.
And now that it's mid-April, I guess I should ask, is it on track for being completed soon? And are the plantings we're going to be able to do them in the spring before it gets too warm, Liz? I just haven't heard any update on it.
They haven't finished the project yet. So
Yeah,
we have
right.
to wait for that and for DelDOT to close everything out. So it's question mark, honestly, with the timing because,
Really?
well, I mean,
They haven't finished.
Technically you're usually fine planting through June, so it shouldn't be an issue. But I think somebody asked about, I can't remember if it was this committee asked about the cicadas. So the state of Delaware is not delaying any plantings themselves, nor recommending people do so. Just if you have high value specimen trees or plants, that you cover them.
I have a
Okay.
comment to that. Would it be, at this point in time, would it be better to wait to do the planting of that area in the fall, or just try to get the trees in?
Well, like I said, we have to wait till the contractors, the subs, and then the final approval from DelDOT. So that
Right.
timing relates to public works and stuff like that. That's outside of our control, quite frankly.
Right.
So we just have to wait for all that to come through. We should have a better idea the beginning of next week is when they're supposed to come back and start finishing everything up. So then theoretically we should be able to get the final inspections scheduled. So I'm not really sure what time frame DelDOT's on these days.
So you think it might happen by the end of May? Like 6 weeks?
Yeah,
from- Okay.
it's possible.
Okay. Because
Can you
I
remind
get a
us
little
ag-
nervous about planting in June. Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. Can you remind us again, who will be maintaining the trees over the summer, making sure the gators are full, that sort of thing? Is that the city
Contractors
or
are in
the-
charge of maintenance.
Pardon me?
The contractors are in charge of maintenance.
And do
when
we have
do
someone, then we'll
contracts.
have someone looking after that, right? To make sure that that's done.
What do you mean exactly?
That they do it, that they keep them watered.
Yeah, so you got to have a little faith in contractors, because if not, we'd need 3 of me to follow them around.
Right,
So yeah,
Um,
when we put out a contract and it has those caveats in there, we check up on them periodically, but it becomes pretty evident if your contractors aren't mowing the lawn and mulching and doing that type of basic stuff. But
Sure.
so,
I don't have
but yeah, I
any faith in
usually get,
contractors.
yeah, I
Never.
usually get a heads
Never.
up when they come in every Friday. Spizzato does. So I would assume whoever gets this contract, it would be a similar type of thing where they'd come every Wednesday, 6:30 a.m. to water or whatever. Usually they tend to stick to schedule.
So we don't know who the contractor is right now.
No,
When will that decision be made?
it has to be bid. It's a competitive contract.
Okay, doesn't that take a long time? I mean,
No, not necessarily.
Takes
Couple
a
of
while.
weeks.
so what's your timeline as far as putting out the bid and getting,
So as I
Going
just
through.
said,
but what's your
That we-
timeline? Once you put out the bid, how long does that take then?
that's all determined. It's, you guys are really getting in the weeds, but it all is
Mhm.
determined. We're waiting on these final things to get wrapped up from $1 million project. When we get those wrapped up and we get the approval and time frame from DelDOT, then we'll have a better idea of those details. So
Yeah.
generally when we put out a bid, we want it back in a couple of weeks, depending on how detailed the specifications are. I mean, a lot of times I put out a bid and I get prices back in a week. So it depends on what everybody else has going on, how detailed the bid is. They should all everybody has their prices for the season. Everybody has their trees and plants in stock. So that shouldn't be an issue. Like had we done it in, February, March, it would have been problematic because like you call a nursery in the beginning of March, do you have XYZ? And they say, well, the end of March, we start getting stuff in. So it's pretty good timing right now.
Well, that's
But
all.
we don't want to really push it too far, but we can't do it before the project's done either. So we're kind of in a weird
Okay.
little in between time frame.
Okay, well, that's all good context. So thank you for
So
that.
you can't actually put the bid out until it's finished, even though,
Well, there's things hanging in the air with that. So, and rather than doing 3 different addendums and amendments to a bid, I think it's behooves everybody, the contractors in the city, to have everything organized. And, as you know, as Katie knows, this landscaping was done separately from the streetscape. It
Right.
wasn't lumped in as one project, and that in itself creates logistical issues. So that's
Yeah.
why the timing is so important.
And it's definitely better to have all your ducks in a row before you put out a bid to contractors, because then
It's just harder
stuff
for
gets-
everybody.
yeah, stuff
Yeah,
gets
I mean, I have a
forgotten.
list of about six to 7 question marks of potential changes, modifications, things getting finished out that when the contractors redeploy, supposedly the beginning of next week, we should be able to have answers to.
oh, okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, well, in addition then to however many are going to go in to that project, the other priorities that I heard last time were the request for 3, and I think since then, Liz, you told me it's up to 4 requests for street trees, right?
Whatever I told you is probably right. I know one
Okay.
of them we're putting in, I think 3 of them there's just room for 1 tree, and then one of them there's room, because it's along the 100-foot side that faces the road, there's room for 3. So we should
wow.
be able to have whatever that is, 5 or 6, I think 6 requested trees.
That's great. So, and are those going in soon?
Yep. They've already been approved, and they're on our contractors list for their work this season.
What
spring.
type are they?
They're all on Munson, so it's going to be one of 3. Let me think. I can't remember the name of the one tree. It's temporarily slipped my mind, but the native chokecherry there, the Nissa, and
Yay.
Chinese pistache is the other one.
And are they all in the 300 block of Munson, or are some of them in the 200?
No, they're all in Country Club.
They're all,
State.
okay.
Mhm.
So go ahead, Katie.
There was, I think it's on Munson. It's like right as you go right off of Scarborough. Like I think that's part of Munson. That's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
So on either side of the street, it looks like you could plant probably 3 trees. Is that where they're going in?
Yeah, on the well, there's like an empty-ish lot there
Yes.
on one piece, so I didn't put
Yeah.
anything there because obviously it's just a matter of time till something gets built there.
Sure.
But the other person
Mhm.
that built the new house on the corner, she was super excited and is looking forward to the trees.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably what you're thinking of. There's room
Yeah.
for 3 there,
Well, that's
going
great.
out towards the corner, keeping it well enough away from the stop sign and all that we don't
Right.
get problems.
And I thought there was another location besides Munson that you mentioned before, but now I don't remember where it was.
I don't,
Philadelphia, maybe? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Okay. But all of those street trees will be done in this spring.
This season, yeah.
Okay. So what other priority planting areas do we have? And Liz, do you have other priorities for this year?
The couple of things we had proposed didn't get approved in the CIP, so no, I guess then no, we have no other planned plantings besides replacements, a couple of projects here and there, like we're working on Grove Park. I think the Triangle on State is still up in the air depending on funding,
Aw.
different funding mechanisms. So
Right. But
those would be the only 2.
wait. But when you said it didn't get approved for the CIP, first of all, that for that, you're just talking about the state road project, right?
That, and then we've been trying to do, it wouldn't be so much new plantings, but replanting on Bayard, because
Oh, right. That was on there. Yeah, right. Well, okay.
Yeah,
but-
it's pretty sad, but those type of projects are best done in conjunction with streetscapes or major repairs like that.
And
Um,
that area is due for a stormwater project, and so you would come in and do it afterwards, right?
Yeah, or in conjunction, but yeah, it makes no sense to spend X amount of money and time and doing this big project and then come in and have certain things be destroyed or have to be relocated or removed or rejigged and basically
That
double.
makes sense.
Yeah,
for
double
the
working,
paired
so-
project, that totally, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's probably a good thing that that got postponed because I know there's, they're dealing with like the crosswalks and stormwater and stuff like that. So
Right, exactly. However, you just said something that concerned me a little. You said that, that these were the only ones because of the ones we just talked about, the Lake Avenue Streetscape and the Munson are the only ones because these other bigger projects didn't get approved in the CIP. But remember, we have $17,000 from the commemorative tree fund that's supposed to be used this year.
mhm.
And that 17 doesn't count I don't think that 17 counts the 10% we set aside for maintenance. So there are others that can be done this year out of the commemorative tree, right?
Sure. I mean, we have the few that are going in this spring. We have the few that are going to be part of, what is it, about a dozen for Lake Avenue, and then the whatever I said, 6. So that's 18. And then we'll have a few trees going in for Grove Park. And then I'm sure we'll have a few other requests and stuff like that throughout the year. So that'll probably get close. But I mean, we have no other big streetscape,
Right.
major mass plantings along the streets, block approach or anything like that. Don't have anything planned, and there's never been an appetite to have such a plan.
To have a what? What do you mean? To have
Like a master tree planting plan.
Right, but I think we need one. I mean, I think that's going to be part of our whole discussion about the tree ordinance. Is it? I mean, you said you have one, right? You just haven't.
Well, I had like what we did is you have the vacant spots on the streets. You can take the old inventory, go back through what I did when I started years ago, went back through that. They say you have 800 vacant spaces. You don't have 800 vacant spaces because that blocks front doors. It's too close to hydrants. It's too close to water, sewer, utility poles. Doesn't fit in with the parallel parking, where people wouldn't be able to open doors, that type of stuff. So you
Yeah.
go back through that, you end up, say, from 900, pop down to 750, and then you can divide it by street, which is what I did.
Right.
And
I'd
from
love
that,
to see that. I'd love to see you present that plan sometime, even to, to the commissioners as an overall urban forest plan. Right?
yeah, well, and I don't think I think that's more the data you would use to inform a targeted planting plan rather than the plan itself, because I know we had talked, just because, say, Newcastle has the most number of vacant spaces doesn't mean it's necessarily the most in need of planting, because this doesn't account for private property, right? So maybe
Right.
even though there's no street trees, maybe they have a lot of front yard mature private property trees. So
Mhm.
there is some, I want to say, like, some common sense that goes into that too.
Right. Yeah. No, I get it. But I'd love to see. At some point we need to sort of figure out how to, how to illustrate or wrap
Well-
our arms around that entire plan.
Well,
'Cause I
what we can
think
do if we want to find a way to target like systematically, we can take what I did, which is a few years outdated, but the numbers should still be about the same, right? Maybe a dozen one way or the other.
Mhm.
And then maybe we can do aerial views. So just use Google Maps. So we can put them in order of the number of vacant spaces and then really just do our own analysis with Google Maps. You'll be able to see the tree canopy pretty well through that aerial view. And maybe shuffle a few around that way, because maybe the ones with the most vacant spaces, I mean, maybe we want to start small. So a street that only has 15 vacant spaces somewhere that's a
Right.
smaller street,
Yeah.
like Philadelphia.
Right.
Maybe that would be easier to start with, even though it's a smaller number. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we would have to come up with a methodology so that it wasn't random and people didn't feel like whatever street they live on is being either rewarded or punished by being in the beginning or end, right? So there has to be something kind of solid about it. And then from there we can choose whether or not we want to do how we want to divide the species for planting. So if we want to do one species on one side, one on another, rotate them on the block, every block different, every street name the same. There's a lot of different kind of patterns, 2 in a row of one of another. So we could decide from there.
Well, what can we do to help get this started?
Create more time in the day for me.
Create more days in the week for you.
Yeah.
Can you do that for me too?
Yeah.
I'll let you have a half a day, Katie. I'll take the other half.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was going to ask how we would, first of all, how long it would take to basically get that, but I'm also assuming we wouldn't be talking about everything at once, right? I mean, we'd talk about
10-year plan, probably.
Yeah, but I mean, how would we go about addressing it in this meeting? You'd come with to a meeting maybe with 2 or 3 of them or something, and we talk about those, and the next time we
Well,
talk about more.
I think it depends if the committee wants to undertake some of the responsibility, or if there's no appetite to kind of go out in the field and do that stuff. It depends on how you want to move forward.
Well, if you already have something that, then as you say, it may be a slightly out of date, but not much out of date.
Yeah.
Then all you have to do is what you're saying. All you have to do is match the Google images with your plan.
Well, what I would probably do is take it in percentage, like take it in order. So number of vacant spaces. And because remember, like, we're not, say there's one street with 100 vacant spaces. I think it makes more sense to plant by the whole street. So it might make more sense to do some of the smaller streets first, just to get our feet wet. To go right out of the gate and do 100 street trees will be a little more difficult than, say, starting with 40, 50, 60, somewhere around that range. But that's probably, I think, the best idea is to take the streets, because what I did, I broke them up, and I did not do any of the unsidewalked streets. So School View and
So Henlopen and Columbia.
Henlopen.
mhm. Yeah, those really, and quite frankly, those should be kind of a request only, because in general they are well treated. I'm not saying there aren't pockets that are a little more open than others.
It's much more open than it used to be.
Well, but it's just too hard because you don't have surveys, you don't know our property lines everywhere. It's just, it makes no sense to tackle those first. And then the same with I separated out all the ocean blocks, because it makes no sense to tackle those first either, because they require more effort, quite frankly. You don't get as big a bang for your buck there. You know, they require probably double, triple the maintenance of the ones that are a little further inland.
Philadelphia would be a great street to start with.
Yeah, and we had trees removed there too, big, like tree. Right when I first started, I remember there was, I think it's the right road. There was a road project there, sidewalk, road, and curb. But yeah, so, and it's a relatively bare street. But like I said, I think we need a methodology to it, in that we take these Google Map images and compare it to the number of vacant spaces. And then we can, and hopefully that would be clear enough that we could go from there. But I mean, I think it'll require some in the field observation too, riding down the roads.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, how do you want to maybe plan to starting at the next meeting to take a few of these, a few at a time, and look at them?
I'm going to be frank, I just don't really have the time to do that right now. I just have too many other things going on this spring. I would say as we get into the season, things usually slow down for me,
Okay.
which is odd. You would think landscaping and stuff is busier in the summer, but it's not.
No, I can appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a quieter time. I think in like another month, probably after our next meeting, I'll have a little bit more time open, because we'll be done with some of the bigger projects that
Right.
we've been
Yeah,
dealing
definitely.
with. I'll have a few off my plate.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can't decide how we want to go about it.
That's kind of what I'm getting at is
Yeah.
And you wouldn't plant till the fall anyway, right? On some of these.
Yeah, but don't forget, planting for the fall starts in like July. If we're going to have stuff going in October, November, we're going to start getting prices and doing spots and all that, July, August, I'd want that kind of into August. It kind of needs to be figured out.
Okay.
So it's
No,
Dick-
time, yeah.
Dick-
Yes, Susan, and Liz and everyone, just a comment, and not to interrupt this flow of thought, but aside from the CIP, the city manager has committed funds to the triangle on State Road, that will be done this budget season, this budget year. So, yeah, I've had that conversation. We had it publicly. She committed, it's in writing. So that is going forward. And while there is a draft plan that I think both Liz and Katie and maybe others worked on, that has to be tweaked because of the signage that's different than was originally planned. There is still a plan for bushes and plants and an irrigation system in the triangle.
Dick, is there any thing in the plan for a couple of trees in that triangle area?
I think it's all dependent on the sight lines because it's surrounded by roads and it's relatively small.
From what I
so-
heard, Del Dot won't allow that.
yeah.
Right.
Not even a small tree, even small
That I
fruit
don't know.
trees or-
Well, it is Del Dot land, and so there's been negotiation that Del Dot will allow the city to do this, but there is a concern about the sight lines for traffic.
Okay.
There are, I think, 3 Magnolia virginiana multi-stem, like 4 to 5 foot spec'd out. I think that we decided that was going to be acceptable. So I mean, they would have to be kept short because that was one of the stipulations of the project, that there couldn't be anything over a certain height, which wasn't very tall.
Yeah, well, they were not keen on anything over 3.5 feet tall at all.
Right.
We put the trees in there hoping they would get approved. Now with the way the signage is so low to the ground and in the back of the triangle, front and back,
Mhm.
I don't know what type of, I'm waiting to see what the finished signage is, because originally I was going to maybe have the trees kind of move behind the signs. Now we have something going on the other side of the sign, and the sign's only 2 feet off the ground where it starts. So I'm not quite sure how that design is gonna go. And I mean, we had a lot of really low growing things in there, color and all that, but I'm not positive any trees will be able to go in there.
And so they haven't approved, there's not a plan for them to approve yet, based on you're waiting on the signage information.
Well, we had already sent them that one, over a year ago, and they had some specific requests, but I told them they had comments and changes they wanted, but that was right when the signage started. So I said, just to hold off on it. There was no point in them correcting that, us doing another one and them having to review it again. So.
Right, okay. Somebody had their hand. Andrew.
I did. I just want to go back to Philadelphia Street and say to Liz, I'm going to be around all summer, and when you're ready, I'm available to give you a hand. Okay,
All right,
on the
Thank you.
Philadelphia.
You could be my foot soldier.
I'll be there. So I'm volunteering. Okay.
There you go. Yeah, you'll be done with Arbor Day by then, right? You'll have.
I'll be done with Arbor Day.
So is it the sort of, so you think maybe by our June meeting, we could have the sort of the images and the.
What, I mean, the images, that won't take long at all, but I think we need to decide what we're going to do with them, who's going to decide how they're going to be used, the actual work. I mean, printing off a few Google Maps only, it will take 10 minutes. That's not a big deal.
That's what I'm asking, is how do we take the entire city, because that's in your head and in your notes, and turn it into something we can start talking about. I mean, do we do it block by block with you picking the priorities based on what you've just told us about starting small or whatever? Or what?
I don't know. I mean, if you guys want to choose the order, I can just print out the Google Maps and, the number of spaces, and we can just go from there. But like I said, I think it's very important that it's not seen as haphazard or random. I mean, maybe we'd start in order from smallest on up to largest. And then use the maps if we see something that's really bare to reprioritize it, because there are a few streets that are not well treed.
Liza,
sure.
It's been done in Chevy Chase, Maryland, but I feel moving forward, we should have a complete inventory of all the trees and all the streets and the condition. Now, that's said, it's not going to be done by June. And I think we have a very well-versed, and it would just be, just have a buddy system and divide up the city and give ourselves a realistic timeline of 3 to 4 months. And Liz is sitting in front of a city map and use something like that and log every single tree, the condition. I mean, I am not an arborist or a tree expert, but I do care about the shade and the benefits of the tree. In fact, I think it was in yesterday or Wednesday's Washington Post, the benefits of having an oak tree in your yard, and do not rake the leaves if possible, because of the habitat it provides all the insects in the spring months. I would be happy to take Henlopen, Columbia, oak, and walk with a couple of people, and literally in terms of, I live on Henlopen and I know it's a straight line, so we can use my bound posts and just measure from the street over. It's not, you might be within 6 or 7 inches difference.
Oh no, it's not a straight line.
But at least it's a start, and we can document what we see and what we feel, and then clean it up as we dive into every single street. So 3-4 years down the line, we have a master plan, and it's going to be easier for us to keep up, and we'll see one-on-one. Like, I did not realize the city is in charge of, maintaining those city trees. Well, I have 3 huge pine trees that I know belong on city property because I know where my bound posts in. I hired a Sussex Tree Company, and I didn't get a permit because I didn't know there was a lot of dead branches that kept on falling. Strong wind, branches would come down. So I had to remove all those branches. So this will give us an opportunity to, where we have mature trees, to look up and say, this could be questionable. This might need attention. And I think that's, for those, I can do it easily on weekends. I will happily devote, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. before it starts getting hot, and start walking the streets and tag everything.
Do we have any, did the Davy Tree report do that? Though I realize it's old information. It would have to be, but is there a starting point for an inventory?
Oh, I have a relatively updated inventory through iTree. So when I started, I took the Davy one, which was woefully out of date.
Right.
And back when they did it, now they would give you it on iTree or their own software to maintain and update. But back when we had it done in 2010, they didn't do that. Right. So, they did not do anything that didn't have sidewalks, because we don't have surveys for that city property. And I, over the years, have added a lot of school view is on there because we've done street tree pruning there. Some of the other streets in the Pines, with the exception of Henlopen and Columbia, pretty much, because that's basically 4 miles of trees with the way varying right of ways up to 40 feet the city owns at the ocean, going all the way back down to like 6 to 8 the further you get away from the beach. So
does it have to be updated?
Inventories have to be updated. I'd say the best, when I do it is when we go around and every year I do an annual assessment of all the trees. So that's really the best time to update the inventory, is when I do that, because you're already out in the field looking at the conditions of the trees.
Well, does it make sense for us to help out on Columbia and Henlopen? Those
No,
two-
not without an accurate survey and without extensive training. I mean, if anybody's ever been part, like Baltimore did a citizen survey, Casey Trees does them. There is a really rigorous training to that to use the volunteers, which is a great program if you have multiple staff members and dedicated volunteers, but it is a lot of work to run those programs.
Survey program. So it sounds like you've got an inventory, or that you do an inventory every year.
Well, I update our existing inventory, yeah.
Is there a way, using what Eliza had suggested, is there a way we can help, or is it just a matter of waiting until the time of year when you would normally just do the updates anyway?
I think that unless we have a rigorous training for inventory, identifying tree species, tree condition and health, canopy coverage percentage, height, diameter.
Right.
It's a lot more involved than just walking around and trying to say, okay, this tree
Okay.
here. And like I said, with the exception of Columbia and Henlopen, I've done pretty much all the streets to the best of our ability without surveys. So,
Right.
you know, sometimes they get an idea because I can pull individual property surveys, which I've done. But, you know, to do 4 miles of that for Columbia and Henlopen just isn't feasible.
Right. Okay.
Is there, for residents, such as the people that live on the shaded trees, like on Henlopen Avenue, like in my case, where I expensed $2,000 in getting all the dead limbs, is that the owner's responsibility or the city's responsibility?
So we have an inspection request available online. So if you have a city tree that you think needs attention, the best thing to do is fill that out. So if it is dead limbs that represent a hazard, so that's a very specific arboricultural term, not dead limbs that are a nuisance or dead limbs that are aesthetically unappealing, then the city does that periodically through pruning.
Okay, because these dead limbs, I didn't mind looking at them. I just minded it when they were falling down into the parking.
Well, and to be clear, so if it was a tree that a resident planted previous or before,
right,
then which happens a lot when we have that
Right.
big open right away. A lot of the residents did most of the planting and beautification themselves over the years. I mean,
Yeah.
even those on Columbia, there are a few gigantic oaks planted on city property. And one of the original residents told me years ago that he had one of the last ones left that the residents got together and planted them on city property. So there's a little bit of give and take there, but the city would be responsible so if it was overhanging your property, just like your neighbor's tree overhangs your property, you are responsible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty universal.
Right.
Liz, we planted on Henlopen at the cemetery. We did that years ago. Is the city taking care of that? Who's taking care of those?
I don't know what you're referring to.
In front of us, all along the cemetery. We paid for those. The people that lived on that end of Henlopen years ago.
Yeah, that actually is kind of upsetting because we went in and did a lot of pruning years ago. And then somebody who lived on that street decided to top trees, pull trees out without permission, place them. So I just, quite frankly, gave up on that. Yeah, it was
More recently.
And then put an unauthorized plaque down there. So I don't know what the original agreement was, if the city was to pay for the maintenance or not, but
it was treeless at the time.
yeah. So I don't know what the agreement was. I don't have a copy of that.
Okay, because that was.
With the exception of the top tree, the trees are all fine. I mean, if it was something hazardous, obviously it would be taken care of, but they're fine there. So.
Well, they're all small trees. I mean, they're redbud and
there's Armstrong maples there too.
okay.
Yeah, well, they're not a big spreader, so they still kind of look smaller. But yeah, there's nothing besides the one that somebody randomly topped. There's nothing wrong with them, at least.
one more time, not to beat a dead horse here, but you know, if two streets, just if it's Henlopen and Columbia, and we could do anything, you know, I certainly agree with Liza that I'd be willing to walk. What if I walked with Tom Evans and he could identify everything? But again, is think about it, and you know, if we can help, we're willing. Okay.
Well, I'm not sure quite what we would use the data on Columbia and Henlopen for in terms if we're still thinking about tree planting plans. I think those streets, it's much easier just to go and pinpoint a couple of empty pockets along the road because they're few and far in between on those streets compared to the sidewalked ones.
Okay, well, you know one.
Joan.
Well, and of course, anybody who has an empty spot can request it we plant trees. So, you know, that mechanism is always available.
Okay.
Joan, you had something. Oh, I think you're muted.
Muted.
Could the city think about perhaps writing a grant or paying a consultant to help Liz to come in and do a thorough tree survey and plan? I mean, I really think it's a lot to ask one employee in the city to take care of all that. So I know that the city just made a lot of money on selling a property. And I thought, well, maybe they could take a portion, a very tiny portion, and pay a consultant to come in and do a thorough tree plan, you know, one that goes out 10 years. Because if we don't start moving on this more aggressively, I mean, the climate is changing. I
Right.
watch Sussex Street all the time. It is filled with water after every rainstorm. I'm not talking about even sea level rise. I'm just talking about a regular rainstorm. And I'd like to see the city have a very good plan in place to address all these issues. And you can only get that, I think, when you hire a consultant that maybe Liz knows of several types of consulting companies that are able to do something like that.
Do something like what?
Do a full tree plan, survey.
Plan, yeah, and surveys.
For the future.
Sorry, you guys all interrupted each other. Do exactly what now?
A tree plan and a survey.
What would a tree?
A
What
tree
kind of?
plan-
I'm sorry. What kind of survey?
A tree survey where you go up and down all the streets and you
An
identify all the
inventory?
trees.
An inventory, complete
Exactly.
status. And so we know what tree is planted where, the circumference of the trunk.
Okay, but how? So really, just an inventory for the two streets that I don't have.
No, the whole city.
No, for the entire city.
We might
But
as
I
well
already
redo.
have.
But
We already have the
He
entire
has a lot
city.
of that.
Except for those two trees. But I'll be honest, when I go down, say, oak, I only do the trees that I am for sure on our property. So there might be some that are 1 inch on our property or borderline. Like I'm not pruning other people's trees just because we have to err on the side of caution with that. So there is room for error in like anything, room for error in that. But I don't know exactly what kind of, like we're talking tree planting plan, we're talking about paying somebody to redo the inventory plus the two streets. I'm not 100%
I mean, I would,
planting plan.
does the city have a 5, 7, 10-year, 15-year plan of the conditions of all the trees and what direction we want to move into?
I'm not
I mean,
like a
or
pruning.
what trees? No, not in terms of pruning. Like if there's a tree, let's say a city tree that is showing signs of aging, that we'll know within 3 or 5 years that it should be replaced or cut down.
Oh no, you can never guess that. No,
Okay,
but when you do,
I mean, I don't know these things.
no, when you do your condition rating, that's part of it. Right. So you do the conditioning rating, you do canopy coverage, all that type of stuff. So that would show you. But I mean, you say a tree is dying, it depends. The tree could be dying a big oak could be dying for 50 years. Eventually it reaches a threshold when it has to be removed, but that's something you don't want to get in the habit of. You don't go to the doctor and ask, well, I'm getting older. When am I going to have to go?
When should they put me down?
Yeah. But
The thing is, it's like,
The condition rating does give you an indication of that. So
Right.
in a way, it kind of does. But yeah, so in terms of pruning and maintenance, the street trees are pruned every 5 years, and we're even a little bit ahead of schedule with that. So that, I mean, and that was just a systematic grid approach. So we started with high priority removals that were left over, and then pruning, and then we go from there. So we're down. We have very few removals a year on city property. I mean, I don't know, maybe, or at least city removals. If they go to Park and Shade, that's a different thing. But
Going back to what Joan suggested, I get, are you talking about a comprehensive, basically urban forest plan?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, like a sort of a.
okay, well, that
I
wouldn't.
used to call a CDP for trees.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, yeah, so that
yes.
wouldn't have a
So-
tree inventory and a tree planting plan like we're talking about, and a tree pruning like schedule. Like I just said, we have those aren't in that. That would inform all of them, but those specific details would not be in it. It'd be like a supplement to it. So one of your goals might be to develop a master street tree planting plan.
Yeah.
And you might have your objectives and your measurements and mechanisms in there, but the street tree planting plan would not be in the urban forest plan. And there are a bunch of consultants and subcontractors who do that work, and a bunch that are very, very good at it as well.
And I'd actually raised that issue with Sharon and with Liz about, it was probably a good year and a half ago. In fact, it was last year, not the current budget cycle, but last year's budget cycle, and it didn't make it into it. But I take your point, Joan, that we've got some, that there are some funds the city is recent. And I said that during the budget process too, that I wanted to take the excess funds from the sale of the property and earmark them to specific things. So I'm perfectly happy to raise this as a project that we want the city to take on. If we want to vote on that, that would be great. Andrea.
I just want to say I'd like to spend another little piece of that that windfall, and it's the next topic that we're supposed to turn to. But I feel as if I would love an expert to look at our tree ordinance. So
yeah, I agree. In
I
fact,
would like to add that.
But before we get to that, and I realize we're sort of running out of time to actually go through the ordinance in any detail, but it's okay because I think. As Joan said, we're already at a critical point with trees. I'm glad to see you all going in that direction. And I sort of think of that old Chinese proverb about the best time to plant a tree was yesterday and the second best time is now. And so I think any time that planting is on our agenda, that's probably by definition the priority topic for the day, and everything else, is secondary. So I don't know that we are going to get to much on the tree ordinance today. I do have an update I'll give you. But as I say, do we want to formalize a recommendation that I can take to the mayor and commissioners about funding an urban forest plan?
yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, will somebody want to make that motion?
I was just going to say, I guess I would make a motion to recommend to the city that they hire a consultant to come in and develop a master street plan and I guess add to the inventory all the things that Liz mentioned that you would supplement to or create an appendix or whatever to the tree inventory plan or whatever plan she had in place before, which I don't know the titles of.
Well, but that's not exactly, Liz, help us out with the nomenclature here. Do we have to have both? If we get somebody involved to help, turn this into a plan, a specific plan, does the urban forest plan have to come first and then that's the secondary to it? Or can we just do a tree planting plan, long range plan?
It all depends. Anybody who works in government knows that the number one thing that happens to plans, have you ever heard the phrase, they collect dust? And I would hate to see us spend $50,000 on a urban forestry plan that will not include a street tree planting plan, an inventory, or a cost for surveying those lands, and have a plan that sets out, okay, basically the plan's going to say, we want to do these things. Here's how we're going to do them. So it's up to the committee if they feel that's worthwhile. We certainly can do a street tree planting plan without an urban forestry plan. We have our goals, right? So we want to fill our vacant spaces on the streets.
Okay.
That's the goal, right? So then we can formulate a planting plan from that. And there'll be other sub goals, right? Is that we want to make it beautiful. We want to provide a sense of community by block or by street. We want to maximize environmental services, or we want to maximize social benefits, whatever they may be. That
Right.
doesn't have to
But-
be an urban forest plan. But if you're
Okay,
going to
so,
spend
so
50,000
Joan's objective can be achieved by not doing an urban forest plan per se, a narrative plan, but to actually have a specific tree planting. long
Yeah,
range.
so like years ago, gosh, Commissioner, I can't even remember how many, was it been like 3 years ago? A mayor, I forget which even mayor it was, must have been former Mayor Coons asked if we would, and the city manager asked if we would start working on an urban forest management plan. So I did all the bones to that.
Well, I remember that. I've seen the outline for it. I have it somewhere.
Well, and remember the company I used to work for, that's what we did. They're a big
Right,
player
right.
in that game. And it is, if you're gonna have one of those, there's no point in doing a street tree plan before doing that. But to me, for a municipality of our size, we are not New York City, we're not Washington, DC. I think doing a tree planting plan on its own is maybe even preferable, quite frankly, because if we're going to do an urban forest plan, we're out, what, 30 to 60 grand, we're out at least a year for the
Right,
plan,
I understand. Yeah, yeah.
you know, and then on top of that, one of the goals is going to be to develop a street tree planting plan. That's going to take another half a year. So now we're almost 2 years before we put a tree in the ground.
Right. And I think we want to do that more. Bob.
So-
Well,
so
and you know,
there-
everybody's number one complaint of government, even me, when I first started here, was, oh my gosh, it takes forever to do anything.
Yeah, that's true.
And right there, we just hit the nail on the head. Why? Right? Because we're going to have a year and a half of studies before we put a
Yeah,
tree.
and
in.
I'd like to avoid that. I would. Bob,
So-
what do you-
So
That's
Liz,
not
you're-
to say, I mean, we have guiding documents, right? We have a tree code, we have a CDP, we have,
Yeah, no, I understand. And yeah.
so
Bob,
I think that's
let-
really up to the committee, which way they want to go and what they think makes sense. And then that would be up for the administration and the mayor and commissioners to decide if they want to take that suggestion into account, because they may differ. They may,
Right.
if you guys don't want an urban forest plan, they may say, no, we need one of those first, right?
fine. Bob, you were gonna.
Yeah, so Liz, just to boil this down, what you're advising to us, if I'm getting this right, is we can do this internally, essentially, in a smaller way and sort of step by step. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so it just depends on how you want to go, though. Like, obviously, we don't have the capability to do in-house surveying internally, right?
Right.
So
right.
if we thought it was a necessity to survey Columbia and Henlopen, that would be a really large financial undertaking. To me, I don't see the value in that until we exhaust street tree plantings in the areas that we already have the data for, right? Other than that, everything else we can do in-house if everybody, you know, just like Andrea volunteered, everybody's willing and Liza are willing to get their hands a little dirty. I don't see proverbial dirty. I won't make you actually plant the trees. I don't see why we couldn't do stuff in-house if that's the way we wanted to go. And
So, I
you're
mean,
saying-
considering this committee, I think probably all of us are willing to spend
Right.
time to help and
This-
to do this. I
yeah,
know
this
I certainly
committee's
am.
always been pretty willing to do the work. That's for sure.
At the same time, we have to understand that, you know, we don't have the type of expertise you have.
Right.
You're overwhelmed as it is. We all know that. We can see that. So how is
Am
it
I
that
not
we can-
transparent? I'm sorry.
It's a good,
All right.
it's a good
Ring,
thing.
it's busy.
It's a good thing. But, you know, how can we effectively help in this way? And I think we're probably all willing. I mean, the commissioners maybe
Mhm.
are obviously very busy, but those of us who are members here, I think probably I'm speaking for all of us, and that we would be very willing to help in any way that we can practically without getting in the way. And so how do
Yeah.
we do that? And
And-
we need some guidance for that.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that is the question. And that's where I think I can provide some of the data. We can have the maps, we can have the tree planting. And then, I mean, I think it would be up to the committee to really decide with that data how we're going to organize that planting. And I think that can be done through the committee.
I have to log off. I have another call at 11. I
Okay, thanks,
appreciate
Liza.
it.
Yeah, we're gonna be ending now too. The city's gonna
Sorry about this.
shut off soon too, but I think they'll let me go over a couple minutes. So are we saying that we don't need an outside consultant to do this plan, at least right now, or, and that we'll devote the time? I mean, because I had heard you say earlier, Liz, about your, you need an extra day in the week to get all this done. And we might not, I don't know what we would even have for next month. I think we were talking about, you were saying you could have stuff in June because it slows down a little bit then. Are we saying we can do all this internally and in a reasonable time frame so that we wouldn't need to make it a project for an outsider?
Well, Commissioner, too, don't forget how much oversight and work it requires working with contractors.
Oh, no, that's true. Yeah,
It's-
that's true.
If anything, it's sometimes more time consuming. So it depends, whatever you want me to bring. I mean, the next meeting is a month away. In the next 2 to 3 weeks, I hope to have a bunch of big things wrapped up, or at least be on their way, that it requires less of my oversight. So I won't even say it'd be impossible for me to have anything for next meeting. I don't want to say that because it is a month away.
Right.
So it's just a matter of what, like those numbers, I already have them, right?
Okay.
From a couple of years ago. The Google images, I mean, that's nothing. That'll take 15 minutes to screenshot those and target them. So that's not a big undertaking either. It's really up to,
At least start the process at the next meeting.
well, so it's really up to the committee on maybe what they want to do with that data.
Well, it would become the basis for a comprehensive tree planting plan, and one a long range plan, right? A long range tree planting plan.
Right.
Yeah, so we would probably want to put in an order of priority, target numbers, and those numbers will vary based on the street. We're not going to leave 2 spots empty because we don't want to go more than 80 trees, right? If there's 82. The species, I don't think we need to decide that far out. I think we can kind of plan that as we go, maybe plan out the first couple of years. We don't have to, if it's 10-year plan, I don't think we need to plan out 10 years.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, because
Yeah.
a lot that goes into the species planning. But I think if we plan the general layout, like I said, 2 species per block, rotating, different sides, same, and the order in which we want to do it, I think that's enough for us to do a few years at a time.
And Joan, is that what you were? Is that consistent with what you were thinking?
Well, I mean, I would like to see a master plan, I guess, but I'm willing to go wherever we want to go in terms of getting a tree into the ground. That's how serious climate change is right now. And every time I look at my street, it's barren on one side. And I don't know how else to move forward, but we need to put more than 20 trees in the ground every year. And I can tell from Liz that requires a tremendous amount of work, hiring contractors, overseeing their work, et cetera. So anything we can do to get trees in the ground, I'm all in favor of. I'll help, I'll volunteer, et cetera.
All right. Well, let's plan to start the next meeting and looking at what Liz has got, and we'll go from there. Okay.
So would that be Philadelphia or?
Well, I don't know. I mean, let's see what she's got. It sounds like that would be on the list, certainly. But I mean, there are a lot of things that'll be on the list.
I'd have all the streets on there. I think
Okay,
it's up to
okay.
you to decide
Which-
how we're going to categorize the need, really.
Well, smallest to largest would be a great way to do it. I
Yeah, and I
mean,
mean, Philadelphia may only have 12 spots, right? And out of that 12, maybe 3 aren't even available now, right? So we go and we might be able to do, say, Philadelphia and Munson, the next smallest, or whatever it would be. So if we think that's what would make the most impact, because we're also leaving out the human component of this, is that there will be pushback. So that's why it is important that we have documented, publicized plans.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And give people a mechanism in which, like, we have to decide, and this through city administration, not just through this committee. If somebody reaches out and screams and yells at me that they don't want a tree near their house, what's our decision? That it's city streets and this is the city tree plan and we're a tree city? Or we want people to want trees, so we're not going to fight you?
Yeah,
Not
that's
saying
a
one is,
discussion for another day, I think.
well, those questions will have to be
Oh,
figured
I'm
out.
sure. Yes, I
And
remember
so-
they happened before on Monday.
A little food for thought for everybody as we recess for a month.
Well, speaking of meetings, and it may end up being a month. You know, we're 1 week late this month because of the
Yeah,
problem with
that's
the posting last week. So normally we would be on for May. Somebody help me out on the calendar here. May 14th, I think it is. And I know that one of us, I know Joan is actually going to be out that day, and there's a chance that I will be as well. So I guess I'm wondering, would we all be available on the 21st? I mean, we can finalize this over email. We don't have to do it right now, but I'm thinking that,
May
because then that
21st.
would give you, Liz, that would give you a full month between meetings. So that would help through the information you're gathering, but it also might help me. And I know Joan won't be here anyway if we met on the 14th.
Yeah. You're
That
not
would probably
for a
help
lot of
me.
information for that. I just want to make sure you weren't expecting me to come with like a tree planting plan species
No,
pattern.
no, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. Katie, did you say you couldn't do the 21st?
No, the 21st would be better than the 14th.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I may look to do that if you don't mind. I may look at changing that. In fact, I'll probably change it pretty soon just so the city has it on the calendar.
I'm kind of like Liz, like the summer is like a little more low key than the spring. I mean, right now it's,
Oh, yeah.
I could use like 3 extra days in the week.
Yeah.
It's like what it's wild right now. I've
It is
never
wild.
seen this amount of stuff
Right.
going on.
Yep. Yep. Okay. And then so finally, I do appreciate everybody's comments on the tree ordinance. I sent those out. And I hope maybe next time we can spend some time talking about it. But I'll also say that since I sent out the first version, which was not recently, that was a few months ago, at that point, we were looking at getting feedback, excuse me, just on the current version, the Law Oversight Committee. But since the commissioners have met, we've really put back into the mix the Planning Commission version done in 2014 for 2 reasons. One, it was never fully evaluated and needs to be. And secondly, it does have some detail that would fill in some of the missing pieces on the shorter one. And so I think what I may do, since we didn't talk about it today, and I was looking at it, was refreshing my memory on it last night, and the names of the sections do seem to match up. So that's a good thing. So it would enable me to compare truly side by side. And I think what I might do is put some thoughts together about that and about things that we might be able to, again, based on your feedback so far, of things that we might pull back into it from the Planning Commission version, and then we can talk about it all together instead of piecemeal.
I have a comment about that. I said that the definition of a street tree, I mean, I think that it should be kept to trees, not shrubs and landscape
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
plants. I mean, I just think that
Mhm.
I think that's a really bad thing to start getting into. I mean, a street tree is a
Is a tree.
It's a tree.
Tree, right.
Is a
Yep,
tree.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
right. Okay. Sounds
good.
to
Very
me.
good point, Katie.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if do you might have anything else? Otherwise, we are 7 minutes behind, but hopefully they won't beat me up too bad. Any other final
Okay.
thoughts? Okay. Well, thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Susan.
Productive
Thank you.
discussion.
Thank you, Susan.
See you next time. I see you
Yeah.
at Arbor Day.
Yeah, Andrea, I'll be at